Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Nessun MMA podcast. I am your host, Michaela Vernava, alongside my co-host, Khatchaturian, and we are joined via Skype by Matt Parrino of UFC.com. Matt, how's the Windy City treating you?
The Windy City is indeed windy, but it's everybody's amped up for UFC 225 this weekend, so it's got a good vibe going on in the streets down here, downtown.
Yeah, it's gonna be lit. Have you had any deep dish pizza?
No, I think either today or tomorrow. I've heard Giordano's is the play, so we'll see it. We'll see how it goes.
Giordano's is fantastic. I mean, who was it? Colby Covington coming out and saying he doesn't like deep dish pizza.
Like deep dish pizza.
I don't know how that makes sense. I don't think he's had deep dish pizza, Matt and Michaela, because you know it's fight week. He's supposed to be cutting weight. He's probably not eating much pizza.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. Matt's apparently not too enthusiastic about cheese and
No, I just, I don't know. I think Colby Covington is playing a very, very interesting character, and I think that he is decided early this week that he's anti-everything Chicago, so it doesn't surprise me to hear.
Weird dude. We're going to talk about him later. And it's interesting, Michaela and Matt. 10 fighters have either been UFC champions or have fought in a title fight that are on this card. It's stacked. Stacked.
It is. It's loaded. It's going to be a very exciting weekend. So naturally, we need to start with Curtis Blaydes.
Oh.
And that is, I say that sarcastically and in jest, but it's also not to undermine Blaydes, who is a great up-and-coming heavyweight, but it is just, if anyone who's been listening to our material knows that Andre has been in Blaydes' corner, I think, before the guy was even born. Andre believed in Blaydes before Blaydes believed in Blaydes.
But definitely before he had a Wikipedia page. The guy, I've been on this guy for a while now, and I'm excited to see him on the biggest stage of his career, biggest fight of his career. He wins this, he might get a title shot soon, man. It's an exciting time for the young kid.
So here he is, 4th ranked in the heavyweight division, fighting 2nd ranked Alistair Overeem, who, I mean, been in the UFC a long time. Has really made a name for himself. And they're fighting on the prelim card. And Matt, I'm curious what you think about why that is. It just seems interesting to me that we have Arlovsky and Tuivasa on the main card, and they are the 9th and 12th ranked fighters in the heavyweight division, respectively. So what do you think about that?
I don't know. I kind of like the whole idea of the prelim featured bout for any fighter that gets that slot, because if you think about it, the 5 pay-per-view fights, you know, there's one fight on the you know, that's being billed, you know, the main event, and that's that fight's card usually. So the other 4 fights sometimes kind of fall under the radar. I feel like, you know, being the FS1 headliner, you know, with potentially 1 million or more people watching that, you have the opportunity to have a huge audience lead into the show itself. And I just think that, you know, it becomes your own individual little card, that prelim card. So I get it. I think that there's this stigma about it going back, you know, to how this MMA model has evolved over the years, and pay-per-view is king. But I don't think it's a slight to anybody. I just think it was, you know, they want to feature. I think they want to feature Curtis Blaydes, Andre's guy, on FS1, where there's going to be you know, a wide audience, and who knows, like, who's going to tune in at 9:30 Eastern time to watch this heavyweight clash.
And it's going down in Blaydes' hometown. He is from Chicago.
I mean, yeah, I think that's an interesting thing, because his fights can be earlier than the main card. So maybe this is a way to get fans' butts in the seats before the main event. Who knows? I mean, because you want to see the hometown guy fight. Maybe that's another thing they were thinking of. I don't think it's a big deal though. Like, if you're not a title fight on any card, who cares where you are? You're having a chance to fight on a big stage, on a big card, biggest card of the year. For both of these guys, it's a big fight. Who cares where they're fighting? It's not a big deal to me.
What do you think we'll actually see in this fight? Do you think Overeem's ears are still ringing from that Ngannou punch?
I like Curtis Blaydes a lot. I'm not as high on him as Andre is, but then again, there's not many people as high on other people in the world as Andre is on Curtis Blaydes. So,
very true.
But if you just look at his past few fights, I mean, I don't know. Mark Hunt's a big win, but he's also, let me see, 44 years old when he fought him. So this is a significant test. Alistair Overeem has great takedown defense. He's a world-class kickboxer, striker, former champion in other organizations, and I think that this is going to test, continuation of testing Curtis Blaydes' chin, and we'll see how good the wrestling is, because Alistair Overeem has underrated takedown defense.
Yeah, and Blaydes is going to rely on the takedowns. He tends to rely on takedowns. He landed 10 of them against Mark Hunt, and he came out and afterwards and said that he thought getting takedowns against Mark Hunt was actually pretty easy. So you guys are saying that I'm the only one that likes Blaydes. I mean, that's not true. The Vegas odds had, when this fight first came out, Overeem was favored, and now the odds have shifted towards Blaydes. So apparently I'm not the only one who's high on Blaydes.
No. We didn't say you're the only one. You're just the number
You don't
one.
got to explain yourself to us.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, Vegas is high on Blaydes, so I'm high on Blaydes. Blaydes lands more significant strikes than Overeem. Blaydes is the younger guy. He's in his hometown. I'm going to take Blaydes in this one.
All right. Well, also fighting on this card, on the main card, CM Punk and Mike Jackson.
Oh, God.
I don't know what to say about this. It's two 0-1 guys. Punk obviously was underwhelming in his debut in the octagon. How do you get excited about a fight like this?
You don't. I mean, they're both entertainers. One guy was in WWE, in CM Punk, and Mike Jackson has himself said that his real calling in life is, quote, entertainment. The guy used to deliver newspapers for UFC matchmaker Mick Maynard, and that's pretty much how he got noticed by the UFC. I don't know what the end game is with these guys. Like, I'm guessing the promotion decided to give CM Punk a very, inexperienced opponent so that he can put on a show, get a big win. So people say, oh, look at CM Punk. He's got a big win here. We can now promote him the way we want to promote him. If what happens if he loses though? Then this guy basically ends up losing to inexperienced guy like Mike Jackson, who's no one's ever heard of. I don't know, Matt. What do you think?
In a way, to me, it seems like, in a way, it can be a win-win situation or a lose-lose, depending on how you look at it. Like, Matt, do you think that that's the case? Is that if Punk does win, then they can try to promote him and say, oh, he's won, and if he doesn't, then it's like, okay, whatever.
You got to put, like everything else, you got to put things into perspective, right? CM Punk's never going to be a championship contender in the UFC. As a matter of fact, he'll be the first one to admit that he's not UFC level talent. But there's an audience that is interested in CM Punk, the entertainer. And you know what? At the end of the day, MMA as a sport, as a promotion, is about entertainment. I mean, the biggest star that we have is Conor McGregor. And even CM Punk talked at Media Day today about Conor's ability to cut a promo and how good he would do in the wrestling world because his ability to talk. And part of this thing is, you have to have interesting stories. You have to get invested in guys and look at the biggest stars in the history of our sport. I mean, they had great stories. And CM Punk is, he was the pinnacle of the WWE world. I mean, a hardcore fan favorite that, when he came over here, there's a lot of interest and he wants to fight. Like, that's the bottom line. He's dedicated his life to it. He's in the gym 3 times a day in Milwaukee, training with Anthony Pettis, Ben Askren, Sergio Pettis, all these killers at Duke Rufus Sport. So the guy wants to be a fighter. He has a platform to perform. To be honest with you, I respect CM Punk a ton. I think that this guy came out here, embarrassed himself in the first fight. I don't think he really knew what he was getting into. He had a bad performance, and he could have walked away from all this. But instead, he buried his head underground, went back in the gym, trained his butt off for 2 years, and now he's going to give it a go again. I think there's something to be said in the age where we're ultra aware of the bullying culture in schools and online. This guy has been bullied mercilessly online, and he's heard it all. He took it all in, and he's ready to go try it again. I respect him.
I can definitely get behind that sentiment, especially when you look at a lot of other fighters who have been in MMA for a long time and have a tough loss and don't get back on the horse. So I can definitely see where you're coming from there, Matt. But I'm curious if you've heard any rumblings from other fighters just as to how this sits with them, just the fact that he is able to use the platform that he has and is put on a main card, these two fighters that are 0-1, because a lot of other fighters, they have their journey, which is long and arduous, and they need to get a lot of experience under their belts before they're given this kind of chance.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It's a mixed bag. So I've heard some complaining, but I also heard, I'm almost positive, I talked to a lot of people today. They had like almost the whole card at the media day today. So I talked to a lot of people, but I believe it was Colby who said, yeah, I love having CM Punk on the card because he's going to help sell pay-per-views, and that's what we're in the business to do, is to make money and to get interest in our event. And guess what? There's a lot of CM Punk fans in the world. So if that means, a couple thousand CM Punk fans are going to tune in that weren't going to before, I think most fighters at the end of the day will get behind that.
I guess you're right, Matt. I'm all for the whole business aspect of it the first time, but it's like I'm just more confused about the end game here. What happens if he loses? Well, you can get this guy who's stunk it up in the octagon twice in a row, showing he clearly can't fight. Sure, he's a hardworking guy. He's out there for the right things, but what's the end game? What are they going to do with it?
I think the end game is just keep going out there and do it until you can't do it anymore. I mean, if he comes out and shows improvements, I mean, you can only go up from that first fight. I mean, that gif of him coming across the cage, coming across the octagon, missing on a really bad punch, and then getting immediately taken down. I mean, that was as bad as it can get in terms of a performance. And so now it's back to the drawing board, try to make improvements. And hey, if he doesn't win, maybe that's it in the UFC. Maybe he decides he still wants to fight and he goes somewhere to a lower
promotion
organization and figures it out from there. But he's also almost 40 years old, so I can't imagine he's going to be fighting for a while. But I don't blame him for given the opportunity and the interest in it, giving it a shot. And even coming back, there's a lot of interest. I mean, if you look at the metrics and you look at the YouTube views on videos, and article clicks across the internet, people are excited about this. People like this guy, and at the end of the day, this is a interest-driven sports world, and a lot of interest is in him.
I just don't get it. Let's move forward. I think he'll win this one. He's fighting cupcake opponent. He'll get his win. UFC will get what they want. They'll promote him for the next fight, big time.
Well, before we move on to the main event and co-main event, what do you guys expect from the Holm Anderson fight? Holly's now lost 4 of her last 5 fights.
Yeah.
What do you think we'll see from her?
Matt?
Okay. I didn't know if you were going to take this one, but I was speaking with Aaron Bronstetter from TSN, who's in town covering the fight, and told him that I expect this to be the fight of the night. I think that this is a perfect matchup of 2 contrasting styles that are going to make sweet, sweet music in the octagon. You're talking about Megan Anderson, who is a huge 145-pounder and kind of a brawler striker kickboxer. And then you have Holly Holm, who has one of the most notorious knockouts in UFC history when she took out Ronda Rousey at UFC 193. And they have different styles. Megan likes to come forward. She likes to be aggressive and get in your face and make the fight really, really dirty, really, really quickly. And then you have Holly Holm, who likes to sit on the outside and pick her spots and force you to come to her. Well, Megan is going to come to her, and then it's going to be about who wins in those exchanges. Is it going to be Megan Anderson, who catches Holly as she comes in, or is it going to be the quick and fast and agile Holm, who's able to stay on the outside, circle out, and force Megan Anderson into making mistakes, which could happen, especially when you consider this is her UFC debut. She hasn't fought in over a year, and this is a big spot to be making your debut. She told me today that she's confident in herself. She said she's been preparing for this and visualizing this for a year. She was originally supposed to fight Chris Cyborg. There were some issues. She had to pull out of that fight, but it's a big spot. And is she going to be able to perform under the bright lights? Holly Holm has proven that she can do that. So it's a must-see fight, and I think it's going to be fight of the night.
Yeah, and speaking of Cyborg, the winner of this fight is probably going to get another shot at Cyborg, considering there's only 5 fighters in the featherweight division. So these are 2 of the 5. You view this as kind of like a title eliminator for these 2?
I think it is. I think
even with Holm, even after
vocal
she
about
struggled
wanting
against
another shot at
Cyborg.
Chris Cyborg. I mean, think about it. Holly Holm went 5 rounds for the first time in Chris Cyborg's career since the first loss of her career, which was over a decade ago. Gave her the best fight anybody's given her, Cyborg, that is. So I think this is definitely a title eliminator. There's a lot of interest in Megan Anderson fighting Cyborg, but I think that a lot of that interest will subside if Anderson comes out here and doesn't have a respectable showing. If she comes out here and is completely outclassed by the woman that Chris Cyborg just beat, then you're looking at potentially a Holly Holm rematch, which I'm all for. But at the same time, I think people forget Holly Holm's a former bantamweight champion, and guess what? She's never fought Amanda Nunes, who's the current champion. So I think if you get a win here, get her back in the win column, I don't really fault her for the loss to Chris Cyborg. No one's come close to even surviving against Chris Cyborg, and Holly Holm went the distance. I would like to see Holly Holm versus Amanda Nunes. I think that's the next fight to make, no matter what happens. But we'll see we'll see how it goes. I mean, we'll see how long Amanda Nunes is going to be till she takes her next fight. But there's a lot of options.
I have a hard time picturing Holly being able to put up a fight against Amanda.
I would actually say Nunes might fight Cyborg in a super fight between 2 champions. I think that makes more sense. Like,
I actually think I would pick Holly Holm in a fight against Amanda Nunes. Not a very popular opinion, I don't think, but I think her fight style is a problem for Amanda, and I think she'll test her cardio in the later rounds. I think where Rocky Pennington wasn't successful in the fight, where she was kind of succumbed to the leg kicks and didn't really want to come out for the 5th round, I think Holly Holm's style is like almost like the kryptonite for Amanda Nunes. But we'll see if that one gets made.
I mean, she shocked the world before, so you might not be wrong there.
So to be determined, let's move on to first the co-main event of the evening. Everybody's favorite, nobody's favorite anything, Colby Covington versus RDA. I don't even know where to begin with Colby Covington.
I don't know. I don't understand the guy. I'm still convinced it's an act, but he's doing a good job. I mean, there's a reason why he's in this fight. There's a bunch of other fighters that could have been were also could have been in this fight against RDA, but Covington's there, I think, because he's an annoying trash talker, makes controversial remarks, and Matt, you were saying this sport's about the clicks and the views and the high ratings and the pay-per-view buys. So Covington's going to do that.
What do you guys think about Covington even just getting this shot at the title, since it is the interim belt? I mean, I know it's different, but
I'm sold. Every time he says something, I click on it. So I'm okay with it. At first, I was like, why? But now I'm like, why not? He says dumb things all the time.
But like, is it what you say supposed to get you a title shot?
As Matt was saying, this is all about the clicks. You go to his Instagram, it's all these porn stars that he's apparently paid off, and it's just no one else does that.
And that's why he gets a title fight?
Hey, everyone has their own way of going to the top.
No,
I don't like it, but
I think he gets a title fight because if you strip away all of the nonsense, he's actually a very accomplished fighter in the UFC. This is a guy that has a record of 13-1. He rattled off, I believe it was 6 straight to start his career. Let me look. No, he won his first 3, then he lost, and now he's currently on a 5-fight win streak. So this guy has beaten pretty much everybody that the UFC has put in front of him. He took out a Damian Maia that was a top 3 contender at the time, and Rafael dos Anjos is, former champion who's had a hell of a run himself. So I think this is definitely 2 of the top guys at this division underneath Tyron Woodley, and I think either one of them deserves a crack at the champ. I think that for Colby, I think he got this because of the interest that he's building in himself through the community and how he's choosing to go about things outside the octagon. And, some people like it, some people don't. I talked to all the fighters today, almost all of them, and asked them what they thought about, Colby's whole thing. And it was a mixed bag, but there was a lot of fighters that said, hey, I get it. I mean, he doesn't have the most exciting fighting style. So if you don't have the most exciting fighting style, what are you going to do to make people interested in you? And this is his answer for that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, what is it? His last 3 wins, they were all unanimous decisions, I want to say.
Right.
But, like, do you think he can stand with RDA? Like, taking these, RDA is one of the most, like, volume strikers there is in the game. And so it's like, I feel like Covington might rely too much on takedowns, tire out, and RDA finishes him in the 3rd or 4th round.
Mm-hmm. I think he's going to definitely be relying on the takedowns. I think he's going to come out early. I think this is one of the most powerful punchers that he has faced. And I think that once you eat a couple of those shots from RDA, it's tough to stick to a game plan because your brains are going to be rattled a little bit, and you're going to be kind of fighting on instinct. And his instinct is to drop down and shoot for a takedown. And so if he's not landing the takedowns in the fight, and Rafael dos Anjos, don't forget, this guy just went 5 rounds with Robbie Lawler, who took everything that he had to give, and RDA kept throwing more. So I don't think cardio is going to be an issue for RDA. I think that he's an experienced guy. If it does go to the ground, don't forget, even off the back, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So RDA has the most ways to win this fight. He's mad. He thinks that he's defending all of Brazil because Colby has been so disrespectful. And I like RDA in this fight. I think that he's gonna take a big spot and hopefully get that title shot against Tyron Woodley.
You do bring up a good point about all the stuff he said about Brazil. I mean, like RDA says it doesn't bother him, but I'm sure he's noted it, and he's not going to forget what he said.
Brazilians are a very proud people, and I think that it bothers the entire group of people, the entire culture, anybody that has any ties to Brazil. I don't think they've been too thrilled with Colby's antics when it comes to that edge, and that's the line that he's walking, that's fence that he's kind of riding right now. You go too far over that fence, and you're definitely getting into a bad area of things. I don't even really like talking about it myself because I don't want to be.
I also like RDA's experience. We haven't even talked about that. He's fought guys like Nate Diaz, Khabib, Tony Ferguson, Eddie Alvarez, Donald Cerrone, Showtime Pettis, Robbie Lawler. These are all guys who've been champions or been in big title fights. That's a lot of experience under your belt. And you look at Covington, he just doesn't have that.
Exactly.
So the main event of the evening, Robert Whittaker versus Yoel Romero 2. The last fight, obviously very close. Judged 48-47 across the board. Matt, what do you think about Romero? Do you think his cardio will be better this time around to be able to withstand 5 rounds should it go the distance?
I don't think so. I think that Yoel Romero could win this fight. That's first and foremost. Don't get that wrong. But I think what we saw in that first fight is that Robert Whittaker is just better everywhere than Romero is. From a striking perspective, cardio perspective, and even the wrestling. Like, he neutralized all of Romero's wrestling. He got a few takedowns in the early rounds, but Whittaker popped right back up. You look at some of the sports books, I'm looking at some of the numbers, and Whittaker is as high as a minus 240 favorite in some sports books. And when I first saw that, I was like, wow, that's super high. But listen, we don't have a lot of champions like Robert Whittaker. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. He's taken out the who's who of this division after starting his career as a welterweight. He's up a division. He's handling everybody, and I think that his performance. Oh, before I get to that, Andre, what do you think about all that?
No, I agree with you 100%. I kind of want Romero to win the fight because my heart wants Romero, but I mean, he's a good guy. He has a long journey to his comeback from his crazy neck injury in 2011 till now. But you're right, Whittaker is just one of those champions that not a lot of people talk about. He's kind of flies under the radar. He's won 8 in a row, 84% takedown defense, which that's going to be useful against Romero's Olympic wrestling background. And let's not forget, like, Romero missed weight last time. Let's see if he can even make weight on Friday. So people aren't talking about that. Like, Romero didn't make weight in his last fight against Luke Rockhold. And I think that let's see if he can even make his weight.
I think it's going to be an exciting fight. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to this entire card.
This is going to be a fantastic card. Is Matt still there? He just kind of died.
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh, that's fortunate. Good.
But when you really look at this fight, you look at the first fight, right? And I've watched it several times now to prepare for this week, and it's unbelievable to watch what happened in the first round. Whittaker, who came into the fight with a knee injury, an MCL injury, he immediately took a front kick to the knee, and he went back to his corner in between rounds and told him his leg's done. He can't stand on it. His corner said, forget about it. Don't worry about it. Go out and fight your fight. Don't think about your leg. So he essentially fought 20 more minutes on a messed up leg that he couldn't even use. And his performance in the third, fourth, and fifth rounds were some of the most inspiring, was one of the most inspiring performances I've ever watched in a fight. This guy came out there on one leg taking on Yoel Romero, a killer who I think at that time was on a 10-fight win streak of his own, and who just decimated Luke Rockhold with one of the most amazing uppercut knockouts I've ever seen in my life. And he just outworked him. He outclassed him. Robert Whittaker is on a whole nother level. I mean, I was watching the Countdown video, and this guy does training out in these dunes, like these hills filled with sand, and you got to go to the bottom and run all the way to the top. And it made me sick to my stomach. Like I could puke just watching them do these workouts. He's just on another level, and I think that in the end, his age, he's in his prime. Yoel Romero's a little bit older. I really like Whittaker in this fight again.
Yeah, and you look at Whittaker, most significant strikes per 15 minutes among active middleweight fighters. That's the and also the third best significant strike differential among active middleweight fighters. So, you know, the numbers point to Whittaker as well. So I'm going to take Whittaker.
All right, guys. Well, this has been fun.
So
Matt,
much fun.
Stay safe out there in Chicago. Have a blast. Everyone should go to NESN.com, check out our interview with Dana White. He talked to us about all of these fights, some McGregor, some Khabib. Definitely go check that out. And I don't know, guys, any final words?
Final words? Yeah, I'll give you a final word. I'm excited for the Claudia Gadelha-Carla Esparza fight as well, the strawweight, two former strawweight champions. Gadelha fought on the title. I don't think she was ever a champion. But that's going to be an exciting one. I'm excited to see that one.
Mm-hmm. My final word is I'll try to give Curtis Blaydes Andre's phone number.
Oh yeah,
connect
he's a good dude.
Share stories of.
You guys are laughing when he's up there fighting against Stipe or Daniel Cormier at the end of this year. You won't be laughing.
You're gonna go into sensory overload if that happens. I'm gonna be so excited for that fight.
It'll be an exciting one.
All right, that's a good final word. Sign off.
I agree.
Adios.
Bye, guys.
Take care, guys.